So today I am joined by my dear friend and SwanWaters co-founder Wanda Goodman, all the way from Shreveport in Louisiana. It's going to be fun with the two accents today, huh, Wanda?
Yes, should be interesting.
But yeah, we were part of the original group of people um, who founded SwanWaters back in. I mean, I think officially we founded the organization in September of 2013. And
I
I
think
think the
that's right.
website went live in like February 2014, something like that.
Sounds right. Sounds right.
It's longer ago than I'm willing to admit. But so I mean, can you go into a little bit on why we even did this crazy thing that we did?
Well, we had all connected on the internet and just didn't have a place to really. I'm having problems plugging in something here.
That's all right.
There,
Um,
that's what. Okay, so we connected on the internet and pretty quickly realized that we all had something in common, even though it was very different how it manifested itself. But we all had in common that we had questions and problems with our mothers.
yeah, originally it was all of us were daughters of um, I think we all kind of connected originally on a different platform, which was specifically aimed at daughters of narcissistic mothers. And although none of us are qualified to diagnose our mothers, we lived with them. We know them pretty well, and we can look up symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder. Anyway, but we were all daughters of, and not until later on that we kind of expand that into people having similar experiences with other people in their lives. But you and I both had lovely, warm, caring mothers. um, and what one of the things that I think really connected all of us, we were all in such different places in the world, and yet those experiences that we had growing up in the families that we did, there is so much similarities in how how these games are played, right?
Right, right. Those similarities were kind of outstanding because we all thought we were the only ones. And to hear other people that had experienced similar or sometimes exactly the same things in a very different setting was very eye-opening for all of us.
It was so validating. And I think one of the first things we expressed to each other was this feeling of, oh, it's so nice to be able to share a story and not have to start it with, I know this is going to sound crazy, but because the
Right.
understanding was there, right? Like we all went through this crazy making stuff. And I think part of why emotional abuse and narcissistic abuse is so difficult to really deal with is that sort of crazy making, that like you're almost not, like you can't trust your own observations in it, because the whole game is aimed at you and making you doubt your own.
Sanity, really.
Exactly, right? Like it's this, it creates this really weird dissonance in your own mind of, but I'm seeing this happen, but you're telling me that this is happening, and I can't fit those two together.
And all at the same time, society is telling you that there's no one who cherishes you more than your mother.
Exactly.
And that makes it very, very difficult to put those things together.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but my mother like she worked so hard at her reputation in the community as well. So the community then mirrors back at you how fantastic your mother is. And it, so how can you then think that she's awful if the whole town thinks she's amazing?
Right, right. And the situation was another one of those similarities that we all saw with each other in that our mothers were, because that's the group we founded around, but our mothers were one way in public and a completely different way in private. And and that was also very difficult to take because, like you said, no one would ever believe that your mother acted that way.
No, and a lot of this is it's so difficult to explain because I always say like it's in all these anecdotes, right? Like there's no um and because it's so hidden and it's so like it happens inside your head more so than anywhere else. I also know like we do so much as children, but also as adult children, to try and fix that relationship because it's so core to being a human being to relate to your parents. And I know that sometimes people go like, well, it can't have been that bad if you did this for your parents or did that for your parents. And I know you did a lot for your parents as well. Like, did you get that kind of feedback as well?
I did, and I don't think people understand that it was a way to try to attain that relationship that we didn't have. We didn't know, I didn't know at least what I was doing wrong. I was certain there was something I was doing wrong. You know,
Right? That's what you're trying to figure out. What is it that I am doing that is preventing them from loving me? This is or that is preventing that relationship from being stable and loving and safe.
right, right. And so I would try this and that wouldn't work, and I would try that and that wouldn't work. And it was just a constant testing of some way to break through and feel those things that you're supposed to get from your parents.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this is the kind of stuff that we all connected on because it is such a lonely place to be, right? To feel this way. And we keep saying it, but the world has such a definition of what parental love should look like. And when you can't find that within the relationship you have with your parents, it's a very isolating feeling. And as children, we don't we don't have the capacity to think what is wrong with my parents that they can't provide this love for me. So we look for what is wrong with me that my parents can't provide this love for me, right? That's the programming that you receive from the get-go. And
And mine was maybe a level deeper than that, where I didn't know what I was missing because I was told I was loved.
mm,
But at the same time, I remember as a child always thinking, when will someone love me? So, in a way, I did get it. I just was in denial about it, I think.
yeah, there, like I say, there's a lot of sort of competing messages in your head while you're growing up in this because like you say, your parents will profess their love to you, right? And
Right.
and publicly they will show that love so that other people can see that surely they are very loving parents. but then it doesn't translate to actual. And we know as humans, right? Like we know what love feels like, and it's not that, because it doesn't feel safe and it doesn't feel consistent. And so there's, I think my child has something to say about it. It's an hour until you get your food, babes. uh, um, but that's the, there's, but I think we try and relate it to ourselves, more than thinking, what is wrong with my parents? What is wrong with their mental health?
Right.
Yes. Um, we keep talking about us, and we were a group of people when we first got started. Um, Many amazing women that we brainstormed and dreamed all of this up with, and we ended up, you and I being the only ones left after, I think, the first year, or 6 months, because everybody just had their own life to live, I suppose. No hard feelings. It's tough work as well to constantly sort of be reaching back and sharing from this hurt place. We came up with SwanWaters, or the concept of the swan, coming out, based off the Ugly Duckling fairy tale. Do you remember how we came to that?
Oh gosh. It just seemed to fit that the ugly duckling is the only fairy tale that I can think of where the main character of the fairy tale has nothing wrong with them. They don't really need to achieve anything. They just need to accept themselves.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's very different in respect to other fairy tales, because there is no sort of test of character, other than you are already everything you need to be. You just need to grow into yourself and accept that you are. And and being in the duck pond, being in the wrong place, surrounded by people who don't see that potential, who don't nurture that potential. And I think that's what, the ugly duckling gets bullied by the ducks, essentially. And that's what we always said, right? Like, this, growing up in a family like this, it's bullying. But it's bullying not at school, where it's bad enough, but it's bullying in your own family, where you should feel safest.
Right. And nothing that I ever experienced made me feel more insecure than that, because these are the people that are supposed to know you better than anyone and are supposed to, experience this huge surge of love that they would do anything for you. And so if these people are bullying you, then where can you go from there?
Yeah, these are the people that are supposed to build you up, right? And provide a space where you can grow resilience and self-esteem and self-confidence. And this is where it's being hacked to pieces. Um,
That's right.
what is, we're in International Domestic Violence Awareness Month. What is something that you would like people to understand about this type of abuse that you think maybe people miss the point about a lot?
Um, I think I think for me the most frustrating thing is people who cannot see beyond the good relationship they had with their parents to wrap their head around not having that, and that can be true. And um it's it's just very frustrating sometimes to try to explain the situation. It's very nebulous, and difficult to convey to someone that doesn't have any background in it. Although everyone in the world probably accepts and understands that there are awful, mean people in the world, and they don't ever take it the next step further to think that awful, mean person that I met today has children. And it's not that automatic love fest that society and the rest of the world tells us to expect.
Mm. I have to say, one of the more validating experiences I had after I cut ties with my family, and I met someone who was from the town I'm from. It's a smallish town, and they had been a volunteer in a in in this place, and he was like, "Oh, your mother took over as as the chairwoman, so I quit because I don't want to be anywhere near that woman." And it was the most validating thing because, like I said, the whole, everybody thought she was fantastic, or at least never communicated to any of us that they didn't think she was fantastic. So for someone to just say, I left my volunteer position because I cannot stand your mother, I was like, oh, that feels kind of good. I wasn't the only one who could see it, right? But
Right.
you're absolutely right. Like when you meet people like that, there are people close to them that are getting the brunt of that behavior, because a lot of times people are nicer in public than they are behind closed doors.
Yes.
So if they're awful in public,
Right. They're terrible behind closed doors then. Yes. But I think for me now, my my mother didn't have a lot of friends.
mm,
And in retrospect, I certainly see why. But every one of those lovely ladies that didn't want to be friends with my mom would have told me in no uncertain terms that my mom only wanted what was best for me.
mm.
And it's just arguably not true.
No, I mean, I know some of your story, and I would say definitely not.
I don't know. I mean, my brothers and sisters, I have siblings, two of each. And while one of my siblings gets it, the rest all are in denial. Um, I don't, I know one of my brothers gets it, but just doesn't want to face it or talk about it or have anything to do with it.
It's
Um,
and it's hard stuff, right? Like it's unpacking this stuff isn't easy.
right. And it's such a drastic measure to take to cut yourself off from your family. But I have to say, as time has gone by, it has been it has been a good thing. It has helped me find love and acceptance in many other formats and places so that I know I'm not crazy now.
Yeah. And I think that was always the point behind what we were trying to do. And it's the point why I'm publishing all that writing as a book, is because the realization that you're not alone in any of these experiences is pure medicine, right? Like it's not you, you're not losing your mind.
It is so empowering. It is so empowering to be able to talk to someone that can wrap their head around the situation and validate the things that happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And cutting ties is super, it is a massive decision. And one that I feel is often misunderstood, and judged a lot, right? Because there's a lot of that, but they're your parents. Yeah, I know. I know they're my parents. That's what makes it so painful. Um, and there's a lot of, but there's a lot of sort of how much it must hurt to them to lose a child. And yeah, I get that, but but it's a it's a result of how they built the relationship.
Right,
Uh,
right. It's just getting to a point that you realize with certainty that your life would be better without them.
yeah, it's creating that space where you can actually address some of it without continuing to be traumatized. You can't heal trauma while you're still in a situation that's traumatizing you. It doesn't work that way. Um, and and I know that there are people who go back to it once they feel strong enough, and I respect all of that, but that is not for me. Um, and I really do think that we need to be able to talk about this more, and people need to. I think I think it's important. A book like mine is important for people who've experienced this, so they know they're not alone. But I think it's important for everyone to understand the kind of stuff that can happen, so that we can understand each other better. Because I think there are so many more people who have experiences like this, and whether that is in their childhood family, or whether it's in romantic relationships, or if it's in church, or wherever we meet these people. I always say it can be anyone, but the more influence they have um, on how we perceive ourselves in the world, the greater the potential for abuses.
Yes, yes,
Right? The closer they are to our identity, and our parents are so close to our identity. So the impact of that abuse is so great. Um, and I really like that Bella wants to be part of this conversation. But yeah, it's and I think the more one of the reasons why I talk about what it is that I experienced is because I think it's important that people understand what happens, because it happens behind closed doors. And there is this real sense of, you don't air your dirty laundry. And that is what creates a lot of the problems.
yes, yeah,
So I'm airing that shit out.
yeah, because who wants a bunch of dirty laundry?
Right? It goes all moldy and ugh.
And I think the other thing about it is that it just started so early in life. You're a child, you're not equipped to understand, handle this situation. You really, in my house at least, there was no room for being defiant or in the least questioning anything that was going on, because you were just the child and everything your parents did was perfect
Mhm.
according to your parents.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I was, I mean, compared to my sisters, I was very rebellious. I don't think I really was, but I was definitely the problem child. But that started before I even, was born. I was problematic while in utero.
Yes.
So it's, I don't know how much influence I had on that part of my life, but sure. Uh,
I know the family story straight from my mother's mouth was when she found out she was pregnant with me, she wanted to die.
Well, that's also a fun notion to carry with you in life, right?
Yes, yes. That she had plotted out the perfect family, and it was to have four children, two boys and two girls. And that's what she had until she got pregnant with me. Like I made that happen.
Yeah. Well, that clearly was your fault, Wanda.
Clearly my fault. And it just built from there. It was that foundation existed when I was born.
Yeah. And that's weight that you can't, because I don't that's projected onto you and you feel that as a child, right? Like you might not understand it, you might not know what the weight is, but you feel the weight of it.
Yes, and then that was followed by um, the first 6 months of my life. She was too depressed to even get out of bed, so she turned over my care to my older sister, who was all of 6 years old.
Oh, I mean, that seems a good idea.
Seems like a logical choice, but fortunately, I survived.
You sure did. And then some.
Yes,
But it's, that's a lot of emotional weight to be carrying with you from the moment you were conceived.
yes, yes, it is, and in a way, I just carried it because I had always carried it, and that's just the way life was, and the freedom I felt when I stepped away from all of that um, was amazing.
Yeah. I always say it was euphoric and then also terrifying.
Yes, at the same time, at the exact same time. Yes.
Because it feels like all that weight is dropping off you, but then at the same time, it means that everything you've believed about yourself for the first however many years you've been alive, you now have to revisit. And that is a prospect.
Yes. Yes. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of grief and working through emotions, and you have to be willing to do the work.
Yeah, for sure. But you don't have to do the work alone, so that's helpful.
No, and that's what SwanWaters gave us, was a place to connect and be involved with other like-minded people, and work towards goals.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like we said, that honestly, the greatest thing is when you have a place where you can go and tell stories that do not have to be that don't have to start with, I know this is gonna sound crazy, but because sometimes I'll tell a story to someone who doesn't have this background and it's like one of the mild ones and they're like, what? I'm like, oh wait, sorry, forgot. Right. And it's one of the ones where you're like, well, I kind of find it funny now. And it's also that's also because I've obviously processed all the pain that's behind it. But there are stories that that feel really heavy and really complicated. And then there's ones where you're like, this is just ludicrous, but whatever.
Right.
I did that with the one where my parents moved my birthday because my birth date was inconvenient. So they moved my birthday. That to me is like one of the mild stories of my childhood. I shared it without context. And this other person was like, that is insane. I was like, I mean, sure, but I have more. One of the least complicated ones.
Yes.
So yeah, it's nice when you have that place where you can just tell these stories, and it's validating, but it's also just kind of nice to not have to constantly be providing context for people.
And the thing about it is the the more you tell those stories, the less they seem to matter.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then it becomes easier to tell them because in every retelling you process part of the pain of it. You provide context for yourself. Like we can now quite easily say, oh, this happened before I was even born, and it's ridiculous, but that story will have been so weighted before. I know I certainly have that with some of the stories, the um uh how everybody was told I was an alcoholic at age 1. That is that now to me is almost a funny story, right?
Right,
But that's because I have now processed it to the extent where I can understand, like, but this is on the adults. This isn't on the 1-year-old. There's
right.
no way that was my responsibility. That's an insane notion. Also, the notion that I was an alcoholic at age 1 is an insane notion. But because you've told it and retold it and unpacked it and analyzed it with people who have been in similar situations, where you can look at it from you can create a little bit of distance between you and the story, and then you can process it and you can take the pain out of it, and then it just becomes a really weird story about your childhood.
Yes. And like you say, at some point it just almost becomes funny.
Almost.
Almost.
That's
Not quite.
one thing I think that in the category of good things that we developed through the kind of childhood we grew up in is a good sense of humor. Kind of dark, but
Yeah.
funny. Um, but yeah, I think we have managed. I feel we've managed to turn a lot of this around into positive ways to show up in life. And I always want to say to people, because you can feel, and I have had so many moments where you feel fucking broken, and sometimes you feel like there's no end to this pit of shit that you have to go through. But you can go through it, and there is another side to it, and you can find ways to flip the narrative and to take positive lessons from all that nastiness that you went through.
Yes. And to a certain extent, as a child, I decided to behave opposite of my mother. Just however she behaved, I was just going to be the exact opposite, which naturally drove a lot of dissonance in the household. I was definitely the black sheep of the family. But um, it it manifests in weird ways, like, you know, not wanting to drink her favorite drink, or, things that really don't matter.
Not at
But
all.
as a child, I didn't have that kind of discretion in my mind. I just knew that if she liked white, I was going to like black, and that was kind of the way it went through my childhood, because I I didn't know exactly what all the problems were, but I knew that I did not want to grow up to become like my mother.
And that's the level of control you have as a child, right?
Right.
You can decide not to like that drink or not to like that color, but that's about the control you have over your life. So I mean, that is the way you rebel.
Yes.
Um, Yeah, that's really interesting. I like that. I rebelled by not tidying things up. I rebelled or I mean, I rebelled a lot, like I said, in comparison to the rest of the family, who all sort of had this way of accommodating her, and that really came from my father, who was always um, just give her what she wants, right? I would get into an argument with my mother, and I would be sent to my room, and my dad would come in 5 minutes later saying, like, I know you were right, but just tell her she's right. That's easier. And I refused to do that because I always, for as long as I can remember, I have this sort of conviction of that's not right. Um that's not fair, right? I if I'm right, then I should be told that I'm right, that I've made the point, right? But in our family, it was whether you were wrong or whether you were right, you were wrong. Because
Yes.
whatever my mother decided was the truth. That's how it works. And everybody managed to follow that programming except for me because it
Yes.
felt unfair, and I cannot stand unfairness.
Yeah, there's a lot of unfairness in that world.
It
Um,
sure is. Yeah, there's a lot of measuring with, you know, there's a lot of double standards and there's a lot of manipulation and a lot of um everybody gets played against each other. Everybody gets treated slightly different depending on who you are and what your personality is, and will use whatever you have against you. There's so much using your strengths and your talents against you and making you doubt those skills and steering you towards the things you're not as good at,
yeah.
uh, just to create that insecurity. And I think um, one of the things that has really, one of the things I remember you saying to me once that I still think about a lot. I was moving, and I was in I was in life or death panic mode. um, and you said to me, but it makes sense that you feel so triggered at the moment because you're feeling unbalanced because you're making moving creates imbalance in our life. That's just a fact of life. Um, and our parents and our mothers specifically made us feel off balance on purpose throughout our childhood. So the feeling of imbalance in and of itself feels disorienting and unsafe.
Yes.
And I remind myself of that often when I'm in a place where I'm like, oh, something's changing in my life. This is what's triggering. There's nothing that's happening. It's just that I feel the shift. But if I want to make the step, if I want to move forward, I have to shift my balance. And so that feeling of imbalance is going to come with that, but I'm going to have to deal with it. And I remind myself of you saying that to me so often because in life we feel imbalanced sometimes when we're trying to, you know, move and grow and do things. And that has been that's been such a that yeah, that's something that I still carry with me a lot. When sometimes Wanda pipes up in my head and goes like, "That's just imbalance. It's okay." And I think we can help each other in that way as survivors because we understand what it feels like to be in that place where you think you're going to die because
Yes.
of the stress of something.
And I think that's why it's important to get all these writings down in a book together because they so come from the raw heart that they really reach people that have experienced this kind of turmoil in their life.
that has been the reason for me. I go into this a little bit more next week. Andrew's going to speak to me about the book and why I wrote it and what I hope it will achieve. So I hope people will tune into that conversation as well. We'll go a little bit deeper as to what I hope